You want to get a bunch of guys to immediately start arguing and calling each other names? Just talk about how to properly maintain or lubricate, just lubricate a pistol. This is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com, and today I'm going to do a quick tutorial real fast, as I can, on how I just do a maintenance check on the guns that we train with. This is a stock Glock 17 Gen 5, and this one is a dirty girl. Oh yeah, she's nasty. This was a loaner for a student recently in class. It was abused for a couple of days, and I use these guns. Oftentimes, I think we think that we need to do some crazy tear down and scrub. I often just do what I'm about to do. I field strip the gun, of course, clearing the action, making sure everything is safe. I want to do a once over. We'll start with a slide first. And because of the amount of dirt and stuff that's going on here and the amount of grit, I am choosing right now to pull this gun a little farther apart. If you don't know how to do that, you've got to pull down on the striker assembly with a small tool, a flathead screwdriver, etc. And while doing that, keep your finger over the rear cap, and then you can slide the striker right out. I can pull out the plunger that actuates the extractor, and then while keeping my hand or the gun over a work table, I'm going to pull out the extractor, which is right here. And then I've got a couple more little tiny parts, and here's where I want to be careful. I don't want that little spring to get away. And this is not a how to put a Glock together video, but just what I'm looking at. So once I get that taken apart, and here's one of the reasons I just love Glocks. I mean, while talking to you, how long did that take? You know, a couple minutes, right? Not even 30 seconds. I'm going to take a stiff brush. This is like a toothbrush, and you can use a toothbrush actually. I'm just going to knock some of the debris out. So when would I do this? We're out at the range. We didn't have time to clean the gun. I'm getting set up, and I know I've got a big day of training coming up. I'd drop the tailgate and I'd knock this out. Here's a product I like to use. These are makeup cleaning sponges. I just grabbed one that's clean. My gloved hands put a little dirt on it. They're meant for ladies to clean their makeup off. Watch this. Just two little swipes through there, and it grabs onto all that carbon and grease and oil. That's what it's meant to do right off of a lady's face. Check that out. It's a very simple way of just kind of degreasing and knocking some of the crud out. I am not super interested in making this gun perfectly clean. What I'm interested in doing is getting the schmutz out of there. Look at how clean that looks with just a couple of swipes. I'm interested in getting the schmutz out of there and getting us into a position where I can inspect it. What am I inspecting for? Well, of course, I'm looking for anything broken. I'm looking for anything that shouldn't be there, cracks, fissures, anything that might need some maintenance. And here's the thing. If there's anything cracked or broken on here, she's probably done. I'm going to be calling Glock and getting another one. So that's a safety thing. I'm also going to inspect the sights or the dot, make sure that they're in good working order and safe to go. Cool. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to grab my barrel. This barrel is pretty dang dirty, and I'm just going to take a brass or in this case nylon brush. I prefer nylon for this, and I'm just going to knock some of the dirt and debris, you dirty dogs, out of the inside of that barrel. Oh, look at her shine. Look at her shine. I'm not doing a big copper clean job. I'm just knocking the grit off. I'm going to inspect the hood and the lug for any types of cracks. I can take my brush again, clean the feed ramp of some of the debris there. I like a brass brush if I've got some stubborn stuff. The brass isn't going to hurt this metal, and I'm more interested in speed and efficiency than having a showroom ready Glock of all things, right? I'm going to use the thing. I don't care. So the hood and the lugs, make sure that they're clean and free of debris. You guys, some of you are going to comment and you're going to go, if you're going to clean it, clean it. Nope, context here, guys. I'm talking about doing this from the perspective of expediency. And if I wasn't talking and filming, I'd be done already. I'm going to take the extractor and take this wire brush and just knock the debris off of it. You may say, if you're going to go through all this, why not do it properly? Well, define properly. What standard do I need to make this gun continue to run flawlessly? Is this. Side note, my buddy, Cameron Hopkins, that owns Supervel Ammunition, who is a friggin' walking encyclopedia of firearms knowledge and experience, just a little brass brush action on that dude. I'm also going to take a look at the plunger and make sure that there's nothing cracked, broken, loose on there. I'm going to take a look at the striker, make sure that it's in good working order, and take these parts and put them back together. Cameron brought up to me years ago, you know, guys that overclean guns, they're getting rid of all the carbon, all the carbon, all the carbon. Carbon on these guns acts as a protectant and a lubricant. We get this idea that lube attracts dirt and the gun's going to be ruined. Here's the one thing I know. Under lubrication's bad. Over lubrication, it just gets slung off for the most part. There's one spot that we don't want to put lube, which is right here. Now, I have showed in past videos, and I will correct myself now because people don't like the nuance, but I will still continue to do it, but I'm going to tell you this. Don't put oil inside of the striker chamber for two reasons. That oil can run down the striker while this gun's in the holster, run off the striker, and foul the primer on the round that's in your chamber. Will that happen? It could. Is it probable? Probably not. Especially if we're training with these guns, which was the context of the video in question. When I'm beating the crap out of these guns, I occasionally will put, I'm not even talking a drop. I am just talking like the lightest coat on here. And the reason being, I'm out in the rain and stuff a lot. I have got like weird surface rust on the striker spring. So know yourself, know your equipment. But the other reason that we don't want a bunch of lube on this is the striker channel and the striker will begin to act like a hydraulic shock in your car, and that oil can possibly slow down or impede the speed of travel for the striker, thus maybe giving you a light strike and making the gun not go off. So I'm going to begin to reassemble some of this stuff. I'm going to grab some Gunfighter gun oil. In my opinion, best lube on the market. If you don't think so, don't use it. But it is our brand and I dig it. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on these components and put them back together in the correct sequence and order, which sometimes I have to stop and think about. On the spring, why? Because I tear these guns apart all the time, and again, training out in moisture, I see that I can get some rust from time to time on there, a little bit of corrosion. Not a crazy amount of lube, just enough. Nothing crazy, just enough. That guy only goes in there one way. If it won't go in, you know that you're going in the wrong way. A little bit of lube on the extractor, and then I've got to take my finger or thumb and push that dude down and then drop this guy right in, and then she locks herself in. Isn't that cool? Take the plunger, drop it in. It only goes in one way. I mean, it'll go in two ways, but you want the spring towards the back of the firearm, then our striker, then our back plate, and there's a little bit of a dance here of parts. Use a flat tool without marring the back of the striker assembly. Get the back plate to go on a little bit and then push down that plunger, push her in the rest of the way. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna set this guy aside for a moment. Now I'm gonna look at the lower. So same thing, got a bunch of junk and crud all jammed up in there. I'm gonna take my brush and I'm gonna just knock this stuff out. Why don't you field strip or detail strip rather everything? Because the context was I'm trying to do a quick little clean and lube, which doesn't require all that. I'm gonna knock all that grime and crud out of there, give her a once over. I think I want to do a little bit better job based on what I'm looking at. I'm gonna check, make sure springs are tight. I'm gonna make sure things like buttons are moving freely. Once upon a time, I was doing something like this and I'm checking the magazine release button, and I'm looking in there, and all of a sudden, tink, the spring cracked, and that was the end of it. Like, okay, I'm glad that happened now on the workbench. And then I had to, go online and order one of those up. Think about, as you're doing this stuff, what is the interval of parts replacement, springs specifically, that you're doing. Recoil spring, 5,000 rounds. We think like, oh, it's all broke in. No, we don't want it broke in. We want a good stiff spring so that we get the slide slamming closed and good reciprocation that'll make the gun work well. We already cleaned the barrel up a little bit, so we're going to inspect any shiny spots on here. Are my contact points. I'm going to be liberal. Let's let the comments ensue. I'm just going to slather that barrel up with all this good oil, get her good and juicicated. Why? Because lube is life. If I look down inside of the slide, you can see that kind of rectangular area right here. That is from the hood riding away and rubbing. It's metal on metal. I want lube on there. Lube reduces friction. Friction causes heat. Heat degrades metal. Heat causes things to expand. Heat causes things to swell and possibly break, and of course wear out. So the better job I can do of creating a boundary layer of lube and keeping it there, the longer the gun's going to work efficiently. Well, I had a Glock that I could put in a sandbox and it would work. Well, cool, do that if you want to, but I am going to run my gun wet. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more oil right here just because I know it's going to piss somebody off. So yep, I'm going to run my gun wet, having shot thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. One thing I can say is wetter is better. I'm going to put this recoil spring back in, and I'm going to inspect it, which I already did as we were talking. I'm going to put a few drops of oil along the spring. I'm going to take my needle bottle, if I have a needle bottle, and I'm going to put some lube into the rail, and I'm taking one more last look at this. I'm going to look for any cracks or fissures in the polymer. I'm going to make sure again that all the parts are moving efficiently. Now there's one part that I want to get a little dab of lube on, just a little dab, and you might want something like this tool from Tango Down, so that I can get in here and create the littlest bit of separation. If you look, I'm going to try to change the camera angle a little bit here. I'm going to actuate the trigger bar, and you see it moving back here. See that? What we're looking for is a little bit of lube right in here between the trigger bar and I believe it's called the cruciform, which if you go open up a little Glock diagram, you will find this little spot that you want to put a little dab of lube in. So I'm going to do that now, and that's just going to help because every time I squeeze the trigger, that trigger bar is rubbing back and forth there. So I'm going to make sure that that's broadcast through that space. Life is good. Oh, that feels rather nice. Because I'm here, I can go dab, 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 dab. I could also, if I wanted to, put a little dab on what becomes the pivot point for the slide lock lever. Check the pins, make sure no pins are backing out or coming loose. When you are ready to, pointing the gun in a safe direction, pin the trigger to the rear, cycle the slide, reset, brake, pin the trigger to the rear. We're checking for good function. Make sure that you've got the slide installed correctly, and if you want to, you can clean this baby up a little bit to make sure that you are not going to have it fall out of your hands if you're going right to shooting. And there you have a nice ready to train with Glock. Something I will add, a lot of sights, including these Ameriglows, are made out of tool steel. They get a lot of sweat, a lot of moisture on them sitting in the holster. Not a bad idea to take a little bit of lube and brush it or wipe it onto that steel. It will make them last longer and keep any kind of surface rust at bay. This is Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. Let's not argue. Let's find out ways that we can make our lives better, that we can train and continue to live long, full, productive lives. Be well, don't be dickheads. Throw it in the comments. Tell me how you maintain your Glock. Go ahead and tell me why I'm wrong, and I'll sit back and drink a delicious hazy IPA and read those comments and chuckle. Hope to see you guys in class. Bye now.
La chambre